What's up, everyone? Josh White here. And as you can see, I'm pretty sunburned. I had one day at the beach, one sunny day in January at the beach here in Florida, and I'm already sunburned. So if you're watching the video portion, that's why I look like a cherry tomato. Anyways, wanted to talk about who I just got done having on the podcast. It's Master Sergeant Bryan Holm at Davis-Monthan, aka Boom Sauce. This guy is absolutely incredible. I was just drawn to him on Facebook by the insane amount of positivity that he was putting out there and just how giving he was with helping the homeless, teaching his kids to pick up litter. He got me included on a few challenges as well. He's constantly working out with like body armor on, and he just is so much about giving to others that I really wanted to spend time with him so I could learn a few things from the guy, and he really did not let me down. So during our talk here on the podcast, we talked about personal performance versus organizational excellence. So kind of what it means to do good things for yourself and your own career versus how it feels and how it looks when you're doing everything for everyone else around you. Can I make everyone else around me better? Then we roll right into mental health, his views on mental health and how he was drawn to the Air Force Wingman Outreach page, and kind of how social media and putting positivity out there kind of started to shape his aspirations for his own professional development page. He has a weekly professional development page on Facebook where he does a tremendous amount of research week to week, creating topics that are sometimes hard to discuss. He's actually also an amazing photographer, so I want to give him a shout out for that. He has some tremendously creative and inspiring photos. He won an Air Force photo contest. Chief Bass has showed his photos around. Here lately, his heritage flight for Black History Month is really circulating, getting a tremendous amount of positivity. Either way, I promise you, you're going to leave this podcast super fired up the way I am right now after just talking with this incredible Air Force leader. So without further ado, this is the legendary Master Sergeant Bryan Boom Sauce Holm. Let's get after it. Josh White here on the HeroFront podcast, and I'm here with the legendary Master Sergeant Bryan Holm, aka Bryan Boom Sauce Holm, which I love the nickname. I was immediately drawn to it. And you're always, you're wearing like really unique leggings online. You have like unicorn logos that you put out there. You're just so comfortable in your own skin, and you're just so positive, and you're always just sharing those experiences with everyone. And I pay attention to that. I'm drawn to that. I'm drawn to people like you. You're kind of the boss I wish I had as an airman, in my opinion, is how you strike me. So I had to have you on here. This is the first time we've ever talked in person, as close to in person as we can get. We've communicated on Facebook, obviously, but this is the first time we've ever got to chat. And so I'm super excited to have you. I wanted to just thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me for a little bit. But yeah, man, I want to get into some questions first. So you don't know this because you haven't seen all the episodes come out yet, because they really haven't. But I created something that I call the Hero's Gauntlet, where before that's what everybody's reaction is.
Yeah.
Everyone's reaction is, oh God. But I've been tailoring the questions a little more to the person. I haven't been like just doing the same exact questions over and over. I started that way, but then I thought, if I know the person a little bit, these are questions that I genuinely want to know. So there's 3 questions here in the Hero's Gauntlet. So we're going to start with question number 1. What is your most recommended book?
Oh man. A million things come up, but if I had to pick one, it's called Furiously Happy by Jenny Lawson. And it was really the book, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later on, but I'm very big into supporting mental health awareness. And that was the book that transformed the way that I think about mental health. And I read it while I was on IUD on deployment, and you could pick up those little book recording things and you plug your headphones in and listen to them. And I took it to the pool and I sat out one day because I had a raccoon on the cover, and I was like, this is amazing. I didn't know what it was about. And then all of a sudden it was like all of these things she was saying just transformed the way I thought about mental health awareness and the way we look at mental health support for people. So That's
Wow, man.
if I recommend that to a lot of people. So
Yeah, I think I've seen that on Audible, I want to say, like as a
yeah,
recommended book.
yeah, I
Um,
recommend always her books. So she has two, another one coming out soon, but always her audiobooks because she narrates them herself and she's hilarious.
that's awesome, man. Seriously happy. Okay, I'll look into that.
You're furiously happy.
Oh, furiously. Oh, I heard
Yeah,
you wrong.
furiously happy.
Furiously happy. Okay, I'm writing that down. Furiously happy with an F, y'all. Okay, now actually like it even more now. That's
Yeah.
that's a pretty catchy name. And then on the topic of books, I wanted to recommend one to you and anyone listening. It was the first book that got me into, I guess, getting to know myself, and it's called Love is Letting Go of Fear. And the
Huh.
concept is that there's only love driving you or fear driving you. And it kind of paints the picture on how each one of those looks. And it's very simple how it's written. And there's illustrations in there that's really simple. But this book I found out through a friend who was sent to a boarding school. This is a very popular book with like troubled youth. And he was my best friend. So I read the book while he was gone because when he got back, I wanted to be kind of on the same page as him. So I read that book. You know, it sounded corny. Love is letting go of fear. What is that? And then it really just blew my mind. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of books being put out there right now. That is the OG book to me. And so I want to put that out there for you guys too.
Sweet. I'll have to take it. I love books where it's like I don't expect much out of it, and then all of a sudden it's just like bam, it hits you in the face, and you're like, wow, how did I never read this before in my life?
That's literally how I felt about this book. And it's written
Yeah.
so simple that it just puts it out there in ways that I feel like anyone could, grasp and understand. So definitely check it out, man, and let me know if you like it.
Sweet. Will do.
All right, second question. This is really random question, and I'm just curious to see where you take it. What keeps you up at night?
Oh man. It's usually playing conversations in my head with people at work, and it's things that I'm like, oh, so I'll have all these weird ideas. First of all, I think a million miles a minute, and my wife yells at me all the time because I'm just like idea. Well, at night I have all these ideas, and I'm like, I really want to talk to this person about this thing, and then I'll have the entire conversation in my head, and I'm like, this is how it's going to go, and I'm going to say this, and they're going to say this, or something else, and I'm going to go down this path, and I will lay there for like 30 minutes just ruminating about how a conversation is going to go tomorrow. Something that and it's usually something impactful. I'm like, I really want to talk to this person. They mentioned something about X, Y, or Z that they like doing. And I'm like, I'm going to have a conversation with them about it tomorrow. So that's
That's awesome,
exactly
man.
what, yeah, that's every single night. That's what I'm doing. And then eventually I fall asleep.
So I had a commander I worked for named Colonel Rainey, and he had that type of issue too. I think because he was also a new commander and there was just a lot on his mind. But he told me he kept a notepad by his bedside to write those thoughts down. Otherwise, he said he couldn't sleep. And I thought that was kind of an interesting, I don't know, way to approach it, I guess. I never really thought about it, but it worked for him.
Yeah. I never thought of it that way.
All right, man. The third and last question of the Hero's Gauntlet.
All right.
Where do you hope to see yourself by the end of your Air Force career?
Oh my God. Why? You have to ask the one question that I talk about. Well, I don't know. So I've had all these ideas throughout my career of what I thought that I was supposed to do. And I think over the last year, I've really stepped away from that, and I've decided, okay, these are the things that are important to me, and that's all that matters. So I PCS to Davis Monthan a year ago, a little over a year ago. And I got here and I was like, I should make senior and I should make chief, and then I'll be a command chief and I can talk to people and I can do all the things that I want to do that are fun. And I got kind of caught up in it. And then somewhere around like 6 months ago, I was like, wait, all I really care about is changing Air Force cultures and helping people. Right. And that doesn't have to be just in the Air Force, but in the Air Force, particularly because I've seen a lot of people who aren't helping people in the Air Force. So those two things are my only reason for doing. And the rest of it will happen or it won't happen. So what do I want? Where do I see myself at the end of my career? If I'm a flight chief still and I'm a master sergeant, as long as I'm with people and I'm taking care of them, I'll be happy. if I'm command chief somewhere and I could do the same thing, that would be amazing, but I'm not holding my breath.
That's awesome, man. There's kind of two things going on there. You know, one, you were looking internally, or you were looking at yourself and your career, and then you changed to everyone else. So I think, anyone hearing that could appreciate that mindset change. It's really hard to do that and to stick to it, but it sounds like, you're pulling it off. And then the second thing that I kind of picked up on was you went from trying to control something that you can't control at the end of the day, really, versus things that you can control, which is changing your own environment, making those around you better, making yourself better, right?
Yep.
And man, that's music to my ears, because I think anyone that's been in as long as us, I've been in 16 years, you've been in 15, so very close. Anyone who's been in as long as us battles with this all the time, because we see people we admire and they might be a command chief, and then you start to think, well, look at the impact they have. How do I get there? But if you get too stuck on that idea, it doesn't lead to anything positive. You get there, in my opinion, by doing exactly what you're doing, making those around you better, always being the best version of yourself. And if an opportunity comes, you take it. You're ready to take it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a big part of that is just, like you said, looking internally. Who knows? Like, I could be a terrible command chief. And what I'm really supposed to do is just go be an op soup somewhere or go be a first sergeant somewhere. I'm just going to, as long as I focus on my goals and do those things, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and every so often you get a slice of humble pie too. Like I remember coming off honor guard, and leading the way in the career field and just feeling on top of the world. Every goal we set out to hit, we hit, and then some. I felt like I could do anything, and then I get back to my career field, which I retrained into. So, 4 years experience, and now I'm a master sergeant in a career field that I have 4 years experience in. And that was a huge slice of humble pie. And I'm thinking, man, I need to work on a few things. If I think that I'm getting to be a chief one day, I don't think so. Like I figured this out about myself at Whiteman, and now I'm here at Eglin, and now I need to figure this out. There's always something to work on. And I definitely love that the way you look at it. That's the same way I try to remind myself every morning, what can I do for other people this morning? I try to approach every day that way, and it leads to so many better relationships with people versus what can I do for myself today? Whether you're consciously or unconsciously thinking that. So good on you, brother. All right, man. So I want to hear a little bit about your background, a little bit about your Air Force story. How did Bryan Boom Sauce Holm get to be so epic and the guy that you are today?
Oh God, I would not say epic. Okay.
Dude, you rock unicorn leggings. You're epic.
All right. So let's condense this. I joined the Air Force as an airborne linguist, and I shipped off to DLI, and I learned a language there for, a year and a half. I met my wife there. We separated. So she reclassed into, not separated like being married, but we separated our Air Force careers. She went down to Goodfellow to learn 1-in-1 to be an imagery analyst, and I went to Offutt. And so we spent a lot of time apart. And then finally she got orders up to Offutt with me. And I spent the first 10 years of my career just deploying over and over again, right? Doing the job, which was super fulfilling for me. I loved what I did on the RJ, or the RC-135. And I got pretty good at it. And so I got put in a bunch of programs over and over and over again. They're like, here, run this thing. All right. I was an instructor at the schoolhouse. I did exec work. I was Stanival for a long time. And then eventually I made master somehow. I don't know how. And they were like, hey, you need to lead people. So they sent me back to the 97th, which is a behemoth of a challenge for my career field. For 1 Alpha 8s, it's a squadron of 600 people, and they're all linguists. And that is just an insane amount of people to have in one location. And that's kind of like the career field and the culture that I grew up in, was a million linguists and not a lot of leaders. And so we didn't have a lot of mentorship opportunities. We didn't have a lot of mentors that were teaching us what we were supposed to be doing. And that was my driving factor when I went back there. I was like, I'm a brand new master sergeant. They're going to put me in charge of a flight. I want to be the leader that I never had in my entire career, right? And I think that's the story that a lot of people have had, especially in our generation, is there are some great, amazing leaders out there, but they're the minority and they're not the majority because we didn't do a good job of teaching people how to lead people. So I went back to the 97th and I was like, I'm going to lead people. And it worked, not because of anything that I did, but because I had an amazing team. I had some amazing tech sergeants and other master sergeants with me, like Sergeant Shepard, Sergeant Steen, Sergeant Kilger. Like those guys, we would sit down and we would just talk about how we could help people. And it wasn't just like Monday through Friday. Social media has ruined that. We would have a Facebook Messenger chat and it would be like Saturday night at like 11:30 and we would be like, hey, what do you guys think about doing this? And one of the people would ultimately be like, it's 11:30 on a Saturday night. What are we doing here? And I'm like, no, it's important to me because that's our responsibility, right? Are the people that we're working for. I made the mistake the first week I went back there and I told people, I was like, I don't work for leadership here. Like I'm going to do what I need to do for them, but I work for you guys. So tell me how I can help you. And then it would end up and I would be like, hey, can you do accountability? And they're like, I don't work, you work for me. And I'm like, oh no, what did I do? This is terrible. But I think it really helped show them like, hey, we care about you. And that's something that a lot of people haven't had in the Air Force, is just that psychological safety of knowing like, hey, these people actually care about me. And when that happens, all kinds of good things.
You have to have the courage to say it.
Yeah.
Right? You got to be, it takes a certain level of courage and vulnerability to tell someone you appreciate them, you care about them, and you've got their back. That is not a common thing people say. For me personally, it took a lot of failures, a lot of struggles, and a lot of being comfortable in my own skin to be able to say that to someone's face or a group of people, right? I definitely wasn't an airman saying it. I can tell you that. I wasn't even an NCO saying it yet, really. I had to kind of find my own path. What is your thoughts like on you being able to share that kind of care and compassion that's so not common because it's just such a vulnerable thing to do? How did you get to the point where you were able to express yourself that way?
I think that this also probably goes along the lines with the fact that I wear unicorn leggings. Like this was not a me thing for forever. My dad was Air Force and we moved around a lot. So I got to experience a lot of different cultures. We lived in Europe for a while. I lived in the very deep South in Alabama. And he ended up retiring near Scott Air Force Base, so near St. Louis. I experienced a lot. And then once I got to a place where I was comfortable with who I was, I kind of, just like I was saying before, was stepping back and saying, hey, what's important to me? And what's important to me is being me. And that has never been the thing that I don't want to fit in with everyone. Not that that's bad, but that's just not who I am. I'm always someone who has stood out a little bit and done something a little bit crazy. And well, that kind of transferred over to how I lead people too. Like I've never been afraid to say, hey, I messed up, right? Or, hey, you're super important to me. How can we fix this? It's never occurred to me that that's not the right or the normal thing to do, right? I think it's the right thing to do. But the normal thing to do is not to open up and not to say those things. It's more like, hey, I got to protect my image because I'm being rated against all the people that I work with. And if I stand here and I say, hey, I messed up, someone's going to look at me and say, oh, well, we don't want them to be the next tech sergeant or the next master sergeant. We want the person who never messes up. And that's an unfortunate side effect of the way our performance reports have gone and the way our culture in the Air Force has gone.
Yeah, man, that's pretty deep. But yeah, being comfortable in your own skin, being authentic and just the best version of yourself, that takes a tremendous amount of work. And I see how dedicated you are to like your workouts. I mean, hell, I worked out today because I saw one of, you running in freaking body armor. So I said, I better get my fat butt out the door and at least go for a jog if Boom Sauce has got a weighted vest. But you're very dedicated, man. You're definitely, the way you're the way you father your children and the way you are as a husband, and from everything that I'm seeing and learning about you, I can definitely tell you're the type to forge your own path, and I respect that. I see myself in a similar light, and I think that's what drew me to want to connect with you, is because I love that uniqueness, that forging your own path, that openness. That takes a lifetime of work to get to that point, in my opinion. So I love seeing it, man. Keep that positivity going.
Yeah, I'm trying.
So here at Davis Mothin, how are you liking that? You've been there a year now. How's that going?
It's pretty good. I retrained into a new platform on the Compass call, completely different mission. So it's been a learning curve. It's a weird thing to think that I'm doing now as a master sergeant at 15 years. Like, hey, you're back to being an airman again, basically, responsibility wise for my primary duty. So it's been a challenge, but I'm getting there. I'm getting ready to head out the door in about a month to deploy. So
You have a lot of variety in your career. I think that's part of what makes you so unique, in my opinion. Just reviewing, you've been kicking butt since day one, first of all, but just the variety and the experiences that you have are tremendous.
yeah,
Like I'm kind of looked at like that sometimes in the med group because I was aerospace ground equipment. I have done a special duty. I have been an exec. So I'm kind of that type in the med group because the med group's very focused, career driven, there's a lot of specialties, right? So you have a lot of experts in the med group, obviously. But my point is there's not a whole lot of variety. So I'm kind of the oddball as far as variety goes in the med group. I would say you probably double what I've done. As far as variety goes, you've done so much, man, that I think your experience brings a lot to the table. So definitely use those experiences, man. Let people hear it. Let them hear about the other side of the coin that they might not have even known existed, And so before we get into the topics that we talked about before we started recording here, I wanted to talk about something that you didn't even mention on here, and I'm pretty surprised about it, honestly, is your photography. My God, man, you are an insane photographer. You are so talented, not just because of the types of shots that you have, but just the thought process that you put into the uniqueness of the shot. So I was hoping you could kind of speak a little bit about your photography journey and then also the project that you recently did that the Airman Wing or the Airman NCO Senior NCO page, reposted, not as a dig because, they're kind of known for controversy. This was more of a positive post from the page, which is really cool that you got on their radar for something positive. So I wanted you to kind of expand on that a little bit.
Yeah. So I don't want to go too much past, we bought a camera just for fun when our kids were born, and we were like, hey, we want to capture this. And then I kind of just took to it. Right. And I started watching YouTube videos, and I wanted to learn everything I could to make our pictures of our kids the best that we possibly could. And then people started asking me, hey, can you take pictures of this and this? And I love doing family photography or couple photography, but that's not my passion. My passion, along with everything, is how I can help people. So I started using photography to do that, tackling some very tough subjects. A lot of that had to do with the mental health stuff that we'll talk about later on. But I just wanted to find ways to capture that because people are very visual. And when they see things, they get a response deep in their gut. And it kind of all started right around the same time as the Air Force Wingman Outreach page did. I decided at Offutt, I was going to do something. So in the Air Force, we had all these suicides happening. This was 2 years ago, and it was starting to be really big news. And we were at 89 people. And I was like, that's a lot of people, but I don't think people realize how many people that is. So we had this crazy idea that we were going to get 89 people in uniform and take them into the hangar at Offutt and put them in a pile, right? And just laying there like they're dead, and take a picture of it, have it real dark with just a light shining down on it. And everyone was like, yes, we want to do this. I had 200 people. They're like, we'll be there, right? And it was like a week before we were going to do it, and it got really big, and the news got to the command chief, and this is Chief Thomas at Offutt, who's an amazing leader. He was like, hey, can we talk about this before you do it? Because my job is to make sure that we're protecting, you know, the wing commander and the image of the base. And so he had an open house town hall, and we all sat down, like there was like 200 people there, and we sat and we talked about mental health issues and why we wanted to do this project and why it was so important for people to see what was really happening in the military. And that was the moment where I changed everything, and I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to use photography to address the topics that people are afraid to talk about. And so I've done a bunch of different.
Isn't that amazing how like one door or one idea leads to another, that leads to another, that leads to another, and pretty soon you're in this whole nother place with this idea that you had a year ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I made an event like, hey, we're going to take this picture, and then the next thing I know, it's like 2 weeks later, and we're sitting in the theater with the command chief.
Yeah,
and he's like, hey, talk to me. And he shared some very vulnerable stories about his own struggles with mental health that were amazing and really opened people's eyes. So it was great. So I've done a bunch of projects with my wife Cheryl, and those have been pretty big. They've been shared all over and addressing mental health. So then recently, actually my commander here at DM threw me under the bus. He came in the office and he was like, hey, by the way, I volunteered you to do this thing. And I was like, oh, okay, what is it? And he's like, you're going to go be the photographer for this Black History Month heritage flight that we're going to do for the Compass Call. So I went out there that day, and we took some pictures of them going through their normal daily routine, and I shared them on Facebook, and somehow they got to the Airman NCO Senior NCO page, which, like you said, there's a lot of toxicity that comes from that page, but there's also a lot of amazing things that happen there. And I was afraid, as soon as I saw it post, I would, like, in my throat, I was like, oh God, this is going to be terrible. And I came home and I made sure my blues were okay, just in case. But it overwhelmingly, it was amazing. People were like, this is great. We love to see this. And I think it's, again, going back to that visualness that people have, is just seeing the faces of people. People were afraid to get real negative on there, right? Those were real people doing real jobs and going through their actual flight. And so people were very afraid to say, oh, you know, this is racist or whatever it is that I see on all the other ones, because they shared a very similar story today about the J-Stars doing a heritage flight, and it got negative really fast. And I think it's because it's a story and not visual images.
Yeah, you do an amazing job at, like, just drawing people in to the photos. Like, you with the heritage flight that you posted, you could see the joy on their faces. You could see, you really got to be in their shoes for a minute and see, like, from their perspective, like, what it meant to them. Like, it's amazing how, like, your photos speak to you in so many different ways without using words. Like, it's kind of incredible.
Yeah,
and then your wife Cheryl too is amazing at working with you with the mental health photos. Like, just, she's almost like an actress, the way she can really show the pain in the photo and the way you capture it and the angles that you use. It's amazing what you've done to communicate messages with no words, right?
Yeah.
It's incredible. So
yeah,
I definitely wanted to touch on that during this conversation. I think it's pretty amazing. And for anyone listening, you got to check this guy's photos out. Is there any place they can go to find your photos?
There are, like, I have a Facebook page, Get Exposed Photography. That's really more like, it's not, I don't have a good place for, like, the journalistic pieces that I like doing, or the message pieces. That's more like, I take family pictures and I post them there. But you can find a whole bunch of them on Airman NCO Senior NCO.
Right. There you go.
Yeah.
All right, man. I kind of want to roll into our first topic here of personal performance versus organizational excellence. Do you want to speak on that a little bit now?
Yeah. So I guess this goes into basically my entire story of the Air Force, and things that I've talked about so far today is, we've been told our entire career, like, hey, you got to take care of your own career, and you have to go out there and you have to show that you're better than your peers so that you can get stratified for force distribution or or so that you can get a good board score. And what people miss when they think like that is we would just all do so much better if we just cared more about the team than ourselves. And when you look at like the profession of arms and going into our core values, like it talks about this stuff over and over again: teamwork and team building and caring about each other. And if you can do that stuff, you win every single time. So I sat with a Chief Sewell here at DM, and he went through this with us, and he talked about how if you compete with the people in your, so say you're a tech sergeant and you're going up for promotion, and you compete with all of the other people in your squadron for the must promote or the promote now, right? One of you is going to get promoted because you're going to get the promote now, and it's almost a sure thing. We're at what, 98% promotion rate for a promote now right now. But if you work together as a team and don't care about that, it doesn't matter who gets the promote now, because all of your bullets are going to be amazing and you're all going to board well, and you'll take more promotions just because you work together, because you can accomplish so much more if you build great teams than you can. Like, I can make myself look good all day and I can go in and I can show my bosses that I'm working. But if I build great teams, everyone's going to win, and not just me. And I think that's where we lost our way a little bit in the Air Force for a long time. Was we were told, hey, now you're pitted against each other for promotion, and people started taking that to heart. And I would love to see the Air Force move back. And I think we're going to finally see it. The airman leadership qualities that Chief Bass just released like 2 weeks ago. I think we're going to start seeing a push towards this stuff again, and I'm super excited for it.
Definitely. I noticed there has been a slight shift in the coming years anyways. I've noticed people are starting to value teamwork, at least from what I'm seeing. I've noticed a big value from our leadership on teamwork and what you've done for others. So it's definitely on the up and up, which is fantastic, because you don't want to be the crabs in a bucket, everyone trying to pull each other down to get out and then no one gets out kind of situation.
Yeah.
Was there ever a moment where that clicked for you?
Yeah. So kind of what I talked about earlier, when I went back to the 97th, and they put me in charge of a flight of 70 people, and I had no flight commander, and I'd never led anyone. Literally, I think I had wrote like 2 EPRs that weren't my own. And so I was thrown into this pool of people, and they're like, hey, lead. And I was like, oh God, I'm drowning over here. But real quick, I was like, all we have to do is care about each other, and you can't lose. And we started doing things like going to people's off work events. Like, I had one of my members, Sergeant Green, who played soccer, and our entire flight went and watched him play soccer at night. And we got hot chocolate, and we got what are the vuvuzelas, the things like that are the big things from the World Cup, and we're just like making obnoxious noise, and it means a lot to people. One of my other airmen, Sergeant Starclough Crane, Cassie, she was in plays, and we all bought tickets and we went and saw her in plays. And this is like Saturday nights that an entire flight of people are hanging out and supporting each other. And we started winning everything because people care. Like, if you invest in people, they will do so much more, and they'll try their best. And we started killing it on the mission. We started taking care of each other. We started doing events at work and winning all the awards. And everyone, at one point, right before I PCS, my commander came up to me and he said, hey, do you guys ever get tired of winning everything? And I was like,
Jeez.
Sir, that's what we do. That's what we do, is we just win stuff. So yeah, it was good. I think that was the defining moment. Like, it was sink or swim. And I just sat back and I said, all right, we have to do this, and we have to do it the right way. And it worked.
Yeah, it's amazing what you do when you're backed into a corner. I kind of been in similar situations, and you're trying to do everything yourself at first. It's very stressful. But then once you realize, like, I have this team, we have this family, I'm not alone in this. I can use these other teammates. We can care about each other, and just the momentum that starts to build. and exactly what you were saying, you're investing that time, you're going to the games, you're showing that support. You know, I can remember times where my whole team was going to, to support promotion ceremonies at other units. And as a team, you know, we ended up getting a guide on, and we would have our own chant, and just that hype and that momentum just gets so high that things just start working out, you know,
Yeah.
because everybody's all in and everybody has each other's backs. And at the end of the day, that makes everyone work at their best.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that can be taken from great leaders out there, like that write books like Simon Sinek and talking about psychological safety. And as soon as you get a team bought in and they know what they're doing and why they're doing it, and then they know that you have their back no matter what, it's like magic. And it's nothing that I'm not smarter than anyone. I'm not better at this than anyone. I just have a lot of energy, and I put that energy into people, and it helps, and they come out better for it.
Yeah. And I noticed it's not a one and done too. Like, you know, when you hear this type of feedback, some people that try to use it, even myself, back when I was a lot more inexperienced, you think it's a one and done. Oh, I can have this one meeting. I'll say, I appreciate you. Say what and then we can move on. And it doesn't work like that. It's not a one and done, right? It's like a daily
you have
thing.
to be, and you have to be genuine about it. Like one thing that bugs me is when I read articles or I talk to leaders who are like, hey, here's how you can show people that you're listening to them, right? Here's how you can show people that you care about them. And I just want to take a step back and be like, or you could just listen to them and you could just care for them, right? And if you do those things, people are going to know that. And that's really what it's about, is being so genuine in the fact that you do care about people. You don't need to know the tips and the tricks to show people that you care about them. And you don't have to have one-off meetings and say, hey, I really appreciate what you're doing, because they know it in their heart because of everything that you do. And that's the step from looking like you're a good leader to actually being a good leader.
That's beautiful, man. I want to roll into mental health and the wingman outreach.
All right. So like I said, this was all around when all the suicides were happening. And I know you know Zach Miller here at DM because you had him on. I didn't know him at the time. It's really weird because this was all happening like grassroots in different areas all around the Air Force at the exact same time. And so we had planned this picture, and obviously the command chief had that meeting with us. So I created a group, and it didn't have a name yet. And that was like the same day that Air Force Wingman Outreach happened. And it happened so fast. Like I remember seeing it on someone's Facebook, and then like there were 2,000 people already in the group. And right away, Zach it was like a little spreadsheet at the top, and I was like, hey, if you're at a base and you want to be a POC for the base, put your name in this. And I was like the first person. I was like, off it. I want to be the POC, right? And so my name was up there, and as soon as I put it in there, I went over and I made our group Off at Wingman Outreach, and that was like the first base level Wingman Outreach page, and it's just grown so much from that. And I think it's one of the proudest things that I've done in the Air Force is starting that group. And it's not because of anything that I did, but the team that is up there right now, that's just every single day someone's posting and they're doing amazing things and helping people out and answer questions. And that group spurred me to take this stuff more seriously. So I PCS'd here, and it was like 11 o'clock at night one night, and someone sent me a message on Facebook, and this girl was like, hey, you are an admin at the Off at Wingman Outreach page. I need help. Do you have the on-call number for the chaplain? And I was like, oh God. So I Googled it real quick and I got it for her. And I talked to her for a long time, and she was back and forth like, hey, I can't call him. I don't know what to do. And then she stopped responding, and I went into like panic mode. And I contacted every first sergeant up there that I knew, because I had no idea what squadron this girl was in, or I'm Facebook stalking her to see whose friends we have in common so I can try and gauge where she is. And we ended up getting a first sergeant and security forces over there, and she had a panic-induced seizure and had passed out, and they got her to the hospital and she's fine. And I've talked to her since then, but it was that moment where I was like, all right, we need to take this seriously. I went out and I got my own mental health first aid certificate. And I also signed up I think you saw on there, I signed up to be a crisis text line person, and I've been on hold for forever, but I'm putting my stuff in now. But that stuff became very important to me. Like, hey, I need all the training that I can get. And I think really all of us in the Air Force need all the training we can get, because it shouldn't just be the 7 people at Offutt who really care about this that are actively seeking out, hey, what do we do when someone's in crisis? Because ask, care, assist, ACE is like the bare minimum of what you can do to help someone out. We need way more training, especially frontline supervisors, NCOICs, flight chiefs, flight commanders. Those people need some in-depth skills for when someone's actually in crisis, how we can help them.
What was the training that you got again?
I looked it up. It was mental health first aid, and it's a certification. There was a organization here in Tucson who was paying for it. I don't know how much it is, but definitely look it up online and see if they offer it it's like a full day, and they teach you using the ALGE acronym on how you can help people. And it's really good. But I know a lot of bases have their own programs that help as well. A lot of chaplain groups on bases hold some sort of like 2-day training that can help people. I think it's called assist training or something like that.
So I love that you bring that idea of like adding training to the Air Force or certain positions or whoever wants it, but just to have that mental health training and how important it is, because you never know when you're in that position where someone's life could be in your hands. You don't know when that day is going to come. And I filled in for the first shirt before, and that day came for me then. I picked up someone from a mental health clinic, who wanted to end their life, and they went through the whole treatment at the mental health clinic. And then when I went to pick this person up, I've never been so nervous in my life, because I realized at that moment, I don't know what I'm doing here. Like, there's a lot riding on what words I use in this moment, right?
Yep.
My words are so important on this car ride back. So I took someone with me who I really trusted as kind of like, just so that there's more than just me and this other individual. But it was at that moment where I started really doing kind of my own research. That's why I asked you what training it was, because, you just want to be equipped to help someone. It's so important to know how to talk to someone that's that down. And you won't realize it until you're in the situation. It's really scary, and it's very real. And every word counts. Every word counts, and your approach to it is very important. So I think having that extra layer of training, if it's for certain positions, for certain career fields, or certain, or just available for anyone to just, raise their hand and do. I'm going to start looking into this training myself. And if I really enjoy it, I'm going to start speaking on it in my own work center.
Yeah,
so thank you for sharing that.
I know we hate saying, hey, let's add training, because we do so much training for all kinds of different things, but we have to do something, and I don't know what it is. But anytime I can get any training that helps me communicate with people or connect with people on a personal level, I'm going to take the opportunity.
Definitely, man. Thank you. So, you were a big part of the Air Force Wingman Outreach page. You were the first base to kind of make their own page. I followed suit. I made the Whiteman one. I think that's how we linked up, because I can't even remember exactly how I linked up with you. Do you remember?
Yeah, so I just remember, I remember Zach made that. It was like outreach coordinators or base outreach coordinators chat. And from that point on, there was like 10 of us that were very vocal in there and talked about things every once in a while. And that was the first time. And then I saw you post a bunch of times on the Air Force Wingman Outreach page, and watched
then
some of your videos.
I joined you had this positivity challenge that went on for like months, I feel like.
Yeah.
Can you speak on that a little bit? Because I thought that was super cool. You tied your own family and children into these lessons. So what was that all about?
Yeah, so I'm a big like I said, I'm a big idea person, and I think like super fast. I have all these ideas, and I usually bounce them off of Cheryl and my wife. And every once in a while, she'll say, "Yeah, I like that idea," and then we make it happen. So one day, I just was like, "Hey, let's do something to give back to either people, the community, the environment, every week for a year." And so every week for a year, we called it our 52-week challenge. We did something different. And some weeks we would go pick up trash, and some weeks we would take bags of food to homeless people. We worked at a veterans home. We worked at soup kitchens. We did some really big ones. We donated like $1,200. We gave $100 tips to people at fast food restaurants one day, and we made videos of it the whole time. It was really cool. And I think my favorite part was we would do something, and then for a week we would try and brainstorm, and my kids would come up to me and say, "Hey, what if we did something for birds this week?" And so we would go make bird houses, and we'd put them up in the trees around Tucson. And it was awesome. I know we talked about it a little bit before, but it was really about teaching my kids what they need to do to be good people, and how they can make a huge impact just by doing little things. And it's working a little bit. That was like the first part. The first part of the goal was to show them how to be good humans. But the second part was just to be visible about everything that we were doing, because that's one of my big tenets, is just be visible, and then people will see it. Right. So we posted every single week what we were doing, and I took pictures of it, and we posted it, and people shared it, and it got really big. There's like 6 or 7 families doing their own 52-week challenge right now, and I get to watch them and see the pictures and stuff that they post right now.
I thought that was so beautiful, man. I didn't realize you did it for a year. You did it for a full year. It's unreal, man.
Yeah.
And you know, when you said that thing about your kids in the birdhouse, that was like the most adorable thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. It was a beautiful thing that you were doing, like with the tips, and just I really could not believe what I was seeing. I was shocked that it wasn't on like the news or something. I mean, it was that had that much of an impact on me. And then it was really cool because one of the weeks you included other people. And so I had a buddy of mine who I just picked up from surgery. It's actually Sergeant Rutherford, who, when I made the podcast announcement, the video I used, it was him. He had a surgery and he was at home for a few weeks. And so, you know, the challenge was like other people, you're inspiring other people to bring good to the world, and to let you know like what we did, and so that you could see it. And so we went shopping for my buddy, got him like made him a whole nice dinner, packed it up nice. And then I explained to my daughter what we were doing. We drove to his house in the rain and went up, and the picture is her with the bag of food knocking on his door, and him, you know, greeting her to take the food. And it was really special, man.
Yeah, I remember the picture. He's like inside the glass door and like standing there. Yeah. It was really cool to see it. So we did like 2 or 3 of those where we were asking people around the world to help out. And one of them was to do something nice for people. One of them was to pick up trash, and we had people all over, like everyone sending me in pictures of them picking up trash on a certain day. I think it was September 17th. It was like National Trash Pickup Day or something. And my inbox was just flooded with people picking up trash across the United States. So it was definitely impactful, and it sent a message. And that's my thing about being visible, is whatever you do, I hate posting stuff, because sometimes people look at it and they're like, "Oh, you're just trying to make people say you did a good job." And I don't care. Like, I don't care if anyone comments on anything or likes something and says, "Hey, you guys are doing a good job." I want people to see that you can do something good, because they're visual learners. And if someone looks at a post and says, "Oh, look, they're doing this thing," like you said, if I see Bryan running with his ruck on, and then I go out and I work out, then I don't need a comment on there saying, "Hey, you inspired me to go run." But it did its job. It sent its message. And that's the important part, and why I think being visible leaders, and being visible with recognition, and being visible with the things that you're saying to other people is so important, because you're not just impacting that one person, you're impacting so many more people when they get to see it.
Which brings us to our last topic. All of this positivity train, which I'm inspired just from talking to you tonight, man. Like I already knew most of this stuff because I follow you on there, but just hearing it come from you firsthand, it's very motivating for me to hear. I absolutely, I'm like a sponge, just getting all this positivity from you, man. And I'm very thankful for that. I'm very thankful you're in my life. And so that leads us to the pinnacle, right? You took all these experiences, you've learned so many lessons, and you want to share it with people who are interested. And so you created a group on Facebook. Let's go into that.
Okay. Yeah. So a lot of experiences, a lot of things that I've learned throughout my life. But when I sit back and I look at everything, really what I did was I said, man, there's still so much out there that I don't know. And I want to be the best leader that I can be. Just like you said, when you came back into the career field and you're like, hey, if I want to be a good leader, I've got some work to do. And that's what I kind of, coming out on this PCS, I was like, I've got some work to do and I need to learn everything that I can to be the best leader that I can be. And so again, crazy idea. I just posted it on Facebook one day and I was like, hey, who in my friends would be interested in putting together a group where we just pick a topic and for a week we talk about it, right? It'll all be around leadership and how we can be better leaders. And a bunch of people bought onto it real early, and I don't even know how many people are in the group, over 300 people now. And it started off, I was like, we're going to start on the foundations. And we talked each week about a different core value and what that really means and where the Air Force gets them wrong sometimes and where the Air Force gets them right sometimes. And it's just built on that. So I do a bunch of research and every Friday I post a new topic. And like this week right now, we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's been a challenge, right? Because there's a lot of people who have different ideas out there and no one person is the expert on any of this. And that's really what, going back to that personal performance and organizational excellence, is if I want to be a good leader, I can do all this research, but that's not going to teach me about people's experiences. My whole idea going into this group was, let's put a topic out there. I'll give you guys some resources. And then I want to hear all these other leaders' experiences, because you guys are the experts in that one thing that you're the expert at. And when you post something and you say, hey, here's my experience that I've had in XYZ career field, that helps me form what I want to learn from that whole experience. So yeah, it's been amazing.
How can people find this page?
It's on Facebook. It's called Weekly Leadership PD. For professional development, and it's just a group. You answer. The only rules that I have really are, hey, you got to be vulnerable, right? When I started this, I didn't want it to be like, let's talk about all the things that we do good and we pat each other on the back. Like, I want us to really take a look at the things that we do bad and then talk about some serious ways that we can make them better, right? You're seeing it right now with diversity, and this week, like I said, has been a challenge. There's a bunch of stuff that we do poorly when it comes to diversity in the Air Force, and there's no good answer on how we're going to fix it. And I think that's the challenge that Chief Bass and General Brown are having right now is, hey, how do we forge forward and how do we make a plan that actually gets at the problem and the processes that are letting this happen? So yeah, you answer it, say, hey, I'm going to be vulnerable and I'm willing to talk about my weaknesses and my strengths, and then you can join. And I don't have a mandate. Like, you don't have to ever comment. You can just read the things that are on there. But if you want to contribute and you want to add your experience in there, it's only going to make us better as a team. So.
Wow, man. I feel like I need to start adding more to this thing then. I'm definitely a person that's been reading it.
Yeah.
More than posting. I don't think I've ever posted on it. I've definitely just been reading everything that's put on there. And I'm completely blown away by the amount of very valuable information that week to week you somehow come up with. Like, I feel like what takes you a week would take me like a month to like come up with.
It is an investment, right? Because I'm posting, at least 5 times a week, and that's a lot of research that I go into. I'm watching videos, I'm watching different speakers and looking at different news articles and trying to find things that are relevant to what we're talking about. And I don't want, like, if we're talking about a topic, I don't want 5 things that say the exact same thing. I want to look at strengths, and I want to look at cons to what we're talking about. So I put in a lot of effort, and I think that's what I do best, is I care about people, and I have like a unlimited amount of energy that I can just throw out into the world. So I'm going to try and throw it in a direction that it does good for other people.
I love that, man. Has this journey on this Facebook group like changed you, or anything unexpected come out of it for you?
A couple of things. So first is, initially I kind of got taken aback by the lack of people commenting. And I was like, man, is this even worth it? And I sat down with my wife and I was like, are people getting stuff out of it? And what I came up with is, I'm getting something out of it. Even if no one else was reading anything, I'm researching a topic every single week and in depth and forming my own opinions. And I'm writing out long posts. And I know that that's helping me grow as a person. The other thing is just the fact that I see it in other people that I talk to. And they're like, hey, I was reading your post about this thing, and it really got me thinking about this opportunity that I have doing this job and how I can do it better. Or it got me thinking about this interaction I had with this other person. So it's happening. It might not be happening as fast as I initially wanted it to. I was like, this could be huge and people could adopt it across the Air Force. And hey, if you want a professional development template, I'm almost at a year's worth of content, and it's a year's worth of every single week topics that are different. But it's working, just like everything else that I do. I want it to happen immediately, and I want someone to be like, this is amazing, and you've changed my life. But if you look at it objectively, people's lives are changing slowly but surely. My kids are changing the way they think about their friends and the environment and people in general slowly. Along with the mental health stuff, we're making huge strides. It's very slowly, and it's not the immediate response that I want, but I think the professional development group is a good cage of that too.
Definitely, man. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. And I think I've been seeing so many quotes and posts and so many messages that I'm starting to take as a sign now. And that is, a little bit at a time and remain consistent will get you a long way. Like, I'm seeing that message over and over again. And so I think it's so important to not give up on any great idea that you have. If it's benefiting you, if you know that your heart and soul's into it, you're getting a lot of good self-reflection, you're going to attract those other types that need that information eventually. But just to stay consistent and stay true to that path, I think is so important. And that's something I got to remind myself of too, because I'm an ideas person. I got ADD. And if I see something crash that I was so hyped about, it can be kind of brutal on you at first, but I'm here as a reader that's not super active on the page. So, like, you probably have a lot of people like that. I love what you're putting out there. I think it's super valuable. I appreciate the time and research that you do. And I'm blown away by how much you're able to just come up with and how really good it is and insightful it is. You would think if someone was posting week to week, it wouldn't be that good. So I love it. I highly recommend that page to anyone who is interested in professional development. And I'm going to come to my last question here for you. So on what is your why and what drives you? You said, I came up in an Air Force that didn't really value personal connection or true mentorship. I have a lot of bad examples of leadership, and I want to make sure I'm never that bad example. I want to leave people, teams, and organizations better because I was there. So you want to make an impact. So let me ask you this. What would you tell that new staff sergeant who came in with all these aspirations and they're feeling like they're not getting that mentorship, they're not making those personal connections, and they're feeling really let down? They're debating if they even want to extend or re-enlist. They feel like they have no control over anything. They're just kind of just going with the flow every day. They're starting to lose that fire. What would you tell that staff sergeant?
So you have to be very careful when you talk about this, right? I don't ever want to tell someone what they should think. So what I usually do is start getting to know them and find out exactly what their goals are and what their why is, right? What I don't want to do is say, hey, no, stay in the military. I'll show you this can be better, because I know that it can be better. I want to find out what they want to do. If their goal was to stay in the military, but now they're burnt out and they don't want to, yeah, easy. Hey, it's there. It might not happen today, but I guarantee you, I know the quality and the caliber of leaders that are coming up right now, and they're hungry and they want to learn better. And there's so much negative energy vampires. That's my new phrase, is energy vampires out there who come into work and they're like, no, this is the way it was when I was in, and it shouldn't be like this. And people get beat down over and over again. But if you just have faith in the system and know that the things that are happening across the Air Force right now are going to make a difference eventually, and it will be there. The why and the pride in what you do and all of that stuff will be there. But if that's not their goal, if they don't want to stay in, don't give up on them, right? You, as a leader, it's our job to find out what it is that they want to do and then push them towards that with all of the enthusiasm that we can. I remember a few years ago, I was doing, did you guys do DDPs when you went to tech school or to NCOA, the deliberate development plans, where you had to identify all of the things like, hey, you would be really good as a PTL, and here's why. I was doing a DDP with an airman who was getting out in a month. And I was like, hey, what are your goals? What are your college classes? What are you going to do in a year? And they turned to me and they were like, hey, why are you doing this? Why do you care? I'm getting out. And I was like, because you're still a person, and I don't care about airmen in 2 years in the Air Force. I care about you as a person in 2 years, regardless of whether you're in the Air Force or not. And I think that was a huge moment in their life. They were like, man, I remember it was like 2 weeks later, they turned to me and they were like, if I had someone that cared about me 2 years ago, I'd probably be re-enlisting. And I think we have a lot of airmen that are like that right now. Even in my current squadron, there's a bunch of people who I've gotten to interact with daily. They're getting out. And I know that if they had had engaged leaders who care about them as an individual and finding out what it is that they're passionate about, they wouldn't be getting out now. They'd be re-enlisting, and they'd be bought in, and they'd be doing amazing Air Force things, and the mission would be better because of it.
Yeah, we have a lot more control and say in a person's life, that could be in a positive way than you realize. You have a lot more influence, I should say. And yeah, when you meet those airmen that are on their way out the door and you caught them a little bit too late, it's heartbreaking. Like, you see the potential, you see the spark, the fire kind of fade out, and they've just been let down time and time again. And you're just, I just got here to Eglin, and it happened with 2 airmen right out the gate. And even one of them even said, if I'd known you earlier, I probably, would stay in. And
Yep.
it broke my heart to hear that. I'm like, but it just makes you realize like how much influence you have on someone's life. Like, this is no joke. You can't take it lightly. Like, the investment is real. It's important.
Yeah, I think Simon Sinek said it, and he was like, no, you have a responsibility to these people, and that should be like at the forefront of your mind all the time. Like, every day when you come to work and you're helping an airman, like, you have a responsibility for them as an airman. You have so much control and power over their life, whether it's recommending them for a promotion or recommending them for an office move or for an upgrade in their career. Like, you have a lot of control over what it is that they get to do. And we don't think about that sometimes. We just think, hey, we're doing the job, and we come in and we put in our time. But if you take a step back and realize how much power and influence you have and how you can use that for good, it actually makes it a lot easier to realize why it is we're doing what we're doing.
Absolutely, man. All right, Bryan Boom Sauce Holm, everybody. This was the mythical unicorn, my hero, Bryan Boom Sauce Holm. I want to thank you so much for having this talk with us, man. It was everything that I'd hoped it would be. I'm leaving this conversation inspired and fired up to get after it tomorrow morning. Thank you so much, man. And I pray that I get to work with you one day, because my God, it would be epic.
Oh, yeah. Dude, we would recognize everybody all the time. It would be amazing. You would have way better hair than me, but that's okay.
Hey,
No.
Go ahead.
No, thank you so much for this is way out of my comfort zone. I never thought that I would ever even be on a podcast. Like, people ask me to go talk at FTAC, and I'm like, dude, what do I have to say to anyone that's important enough that I could fill up their time? So when you gave me the opportunity, I was like, all right, I'm going to push through and I'm going to do this. So yeah, thank you so much.
All right, everybody. So that was Bryan Boomsaw's Holm. Hopefully you're leaving as fired up as I am. And we hope you have a blessed day. Take care, everyone. This is a HeroFront podcast. We are out.